We are just about to enter into Kodela, where the home is being built right now. Obviously, always love being able to go to the land and see this building that we've been talking about for, 2.5 years. There's like part of my mind that imagines I'm going to show up at the land, there's going to be nothing there. And like I've just wanted and hoped for and dreamed about this becoming a reality for so long that it's just something I've like made up in my mind.
The fight against human trafficking, it isn't this international battle that's happening in other countries, and there's this new wave of showing people that, wow, it's actually happening inside of America and maybe like in your communities. It's way deeper and like closer to us than that. The struggle against sexual exploitation and human trafficking is like inside of each of our hearts. For so long, I didn't know if it would become a reality. What if this just never happens and I'm just some dude who gets up on stage and tries to tell people that this needs to be done and like break down into tears and then just nothing happens. The stories that will spread and the way that Jesus' name will be made known. Goat! Oh God.
Welcome to Malawi.
This is a sticky fly trap. We just hung it about an hour ago. Whenever they're cooking meat, it attracts flies. And so a lot of them are actually gone. Well, there's still quite a bit, but yeah, just in like a little over an hour, we just counted 22 flies. This one's still kicking and maybe screaming in the language of flyland. We're gonna eat some meat tonight.
I had an interesting childhood. 3 brothers, always makes for a rowdy bunch. I was crazy active as a kid. I was into everything. I was everywhere all of the time. My parents wanted to try to harness the energy that I had and kind of like put me into a bunch of different youth groups. And so all through middle school and then even into high school, I just continued going to 4 different churches to their youth groups. Probably mostly went because I enjoyed flirting with the girls there. I was finding my identity, I was finding my sense of purpose and just being able to get as many girls to show me as much attention as possible. So by the time I got to my junior year in high school, I committed to one of those girls and we dated for about 6 months. And it progressively got less and less healthy. There was one point I was reading in the back of my Bible and there was a dictionary of terms. I saw the definition of love being a self-sacrifice for someone else's benefit. And I remember I'm driving to this girl's house and I'm thinking, in what way am I sacrificing of something? And in what way from that sacrifice is this girl benefiting from it? It was hard on me because I thought, I don't think I'm really sacrificing anything. If anything, I'm more excited about driving to this girl's house to be able to make out with her than I am about getting to know her and spending time with her. I'm actually sacrificing her to be able to benefit myself and get this good feeling. Made this decision to break up with her and not really fully commit to a girl and have a girlfriend until I really just felt strongly that it was a girl that I could fully sacrifice for and allow her to benefit and love well. And so since then I haven't had a girlfriend. One of the biggest turning points in my faith, in my relationship with Jesus, was when I was 18. Some Mormons knocked on my door and they started asking me all of these questions. What do you believe and why do you believe it? And I was like, well, I know exactly what I believe, but I have no idea the reasons behind that. I'm gonna do some research and find out these reasons why I say I believe these things. I straight up read cover to cover through scripture when I was 18 years old. I wanna know everything that is in this book. My faith completely ignited inside of me and it became my own. It wasn't, what my parents were telling me to believe. My church does this 3-week series, a teaching on fasting, and our pastor suggests that we all in the church do some kind of fast. And 2 of my friends are like, we're gonna full on do a 21-day, no food, just drinking juice. So I'll go, maybe 6 hours and get like real hungry and think I might die. I have no idea how this is going to be possible, but let's give it a shot to lose over 30 pounds, pretty much everything that I had on me. I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock on the 21st night so that I can wake up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning and start eating and finally be done with not eating for 21 days. And I'm reading in the book of Luke, in chapter 5, it talks about how Jesus would often go to lonely places and pray. And then in chapter 6, it talked about how the night before he chose his 12 disciples, he stayed up the entire night and just spent time with his Father praying. I went into my basement at 11:30 on the 21st night of this fast, and I had this sense that Jesus could speak something in a moment that would radically change the whole rest of my life. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to speak, and I'm not gonna say a single word. I'm gonna quiet my brain and stare at the wall. I see these 3 girls and I pray for them for 10 minutes or 15 minutes each. And I get to the end of this and I think, Jesus, why are you showing me these pictures of these girls' faces? And he says, David, these girls have been abused. This injustice, it breaks my heart like crazy. And I've created you with the purpose of helping girls who have been sexually abused. This is one of the purposes that I've created you for. And so I quieted my brain again and I saw 3 guys' faces, prayed for them for like 10 minutes each. He says, David, I've also created you with a purpose of doing mentorship and discipleship of young men. These are the 2 purposes that I've created you for. And to one capacity or another, you will do these things for the rest of your life. The whole course of my life completely transformed as a result of one night at the end of a 21-day fast in January of 2009 when Jesus whispered. And everything that I'm doing today is because of that one night. From where we were in India, some of the greatest amounts of prostitution in the world take place there in Calcutta. Went just to do some research and find out what ministries are doing to help girls who have been sexually abused. One of the biggest questions that I had was, in what way could a young dude impact this injustice? Because it just seemed kind of out of place for a guy to try to help girls who've been sexually abused. I visited 3 different ministries and all of them had some kind of safe home where these girls were being able to stay and get fed and go through some kind of vocational training and get counseling. If I were to start a ministry or be a part of something, that's what I would want to then do. But still, for a good 1.5 years, there were no actual solid details as to where it might be located. I remember I would go to this global map in the hallway of my school and I would stare and just pray, probably weekly, and just say, Jesus, tell me where it is that you want me to go. Light up a country so that I know. A really hard time just having to be patient on direction from the Lord instead of trying to just run and do things yourself.
The challenges a girl child faces in Malawi, it's like lack of support. They're the last people to be considered in the society because there is a perception that one day they're going to get married and their husbands will take care for them. So as a result of that, a lot of children stay at home. When they stay home, they face a lot of challenges like being raped, being abused, being used. And most of the girls, they are there employed as housemaids. She can't report to anybody because nobody listens to a girl child in Malawi. They cannot speak out. They cannot tell anybody when they're abused, just to maintain the place to stay so that they can have a home. She doesn't want to have a bad name because she'll be accused. How can a man rape you? How can a man do that? You gave her a doorway. So he did that because you wanted it. So most of the girls, they keep quiet and they can't speak out.
Amidst all this happening and years going by, there was still just an inner struggle with finding my identity in girls and having that emotional connection.
My name is Haley Bear. I am from Southern Illinois. I am a hairdresser by occupation, and I'm still in school going to get my counseling degree. When David and I first became friends, one of our first talks, and he was like, yeah, I just, want to make sure that we're clear on like boundaries and this and that, which was like totally cool with me, but it was really like out of nowhere because I didn't feel like we were crossing any boundaries until after that talk, because we cross a lot of just emotional boundaries.
I could just find girls that are awesome and I don't have to worry about leading you on. We could really have this understanding where we're not going to be in a relationship, but we could still go incredibly deep and I could get what my heart kind of wanted.
We just talk way too much late at night about serious things in our hearts that to me were to be protected. And
physical things are so tangible and it's easy, like, oh, I messed up there. But how do you know, oh, we talked 10 minutes too long that time, or oh, we shared a little too much. We may again see these are hidden desires in my heart. They're not hurting anyone. But Jesus clearly says whenever you look at a woman as someone that you can just use to get something from, that is the same as actually committing adultery.
I'm just another link on this long chain of women that you are, trying to get to know and trying to save, and like, you can't save us.
The Spirit was just leading and said, this is still damaging and this is still inappropriate. And even though you're getting better, it's still sin. And Jesus just says, if something is causing you to sin, you cut it off and you gouge it out.
I actually told people that I knew him so well that I wouldn't even have been intimidated had he got married, because I would be like, I know him better than his own wife would know him. Yeah, I made that comment. So God was like, unhealthy, like this isn't happening, you're ending your friendship. So after 2 years of being like inseparable best friends, God pulled the chain and we were not friends, no contact for an entire year.
Something rarely seen is the strength a man has to have such integrity and self-control that he's above reproach when it comes to the way that he treats women. He cares so deeply for their hearts, minds, and well-beings that he will go to any extent to put them first, to sacrifice all selfishness and anything that he might gain from them, even if it means he appears initially distant or cold. Guard your conversations, the time, the topics, how much and how deep you share. Save that emotional connectivity for the woman that you date next, or the woman that you one day marry. As cliche a topic as it becomes, especially in church surroundings, every time you dive deep, you give a small part of yourself away. My pastor ends up asking me, where is it that you would go? If you could just go somewhere in the world, what country would you travel to and to maybe build this home? And so we decided that we were just gonna figure out what the poorest countries in the world were. And we found out that 9 out of 10 of the poorest countries in the world are in Africa. And I'm on this travel guide agency's website, and they did this worldwide study on joy and friendliness around the world. And on this top 10 most joyful and friendly countries in the world, Malawi was ranked the 3rd friendliest. At the same time, it was the 4th poorest country in the world. How is this possible? I have to go see this for myself, this incredible joy that these people living in extreme poverty have. We had this event at my church and there was probably, a good 150 people there. I was amazed. It's like, sweet. We just collected an offering and miraculously, it was pretty much exactly what we needed to be able to fund our 3 plane tickets to Malawi. We emailed a ton of organizations. I did research on every organization that we could find in the country of Malawi that had anything to do with any kind of abuse, sexual abuse, child abuse. We only hear back from one organization. We're thinking we're gonna schedule a whole week of meetings with these organizations, develop relationships. Only one person gets back to us.
Yeah, I saw this. He looked a bit younger. I started thinking, is he really ready for a mission in Africa and in Malawi?
Emma, she's the chairperson of the NGO Coordination Network and the chairperson of FemNet, which is across Africa, on top of being the program manager of the Malawi Human Rights Resource Center, the thing that she started, now 17 years ago. And so she's definitely involved in a lot of things.
Malawi is just a small country in Southern Africa. We are about 13.1 million.
Well, there's no high-rise buildings, but there's definitely still cars and buildings. I think a lot of people think Africa is just only mud huts and there's no technology there. Like, that's not the case. You're driving, you definitely see some crazy stuff. Furniture piled up on trucks with dudes sitting up on top of everything, goats and cows walking across the street. Children all over the place, walking home from school, and just a lot of things that you would expect, but also some that you wouldn't necessarily expect. There's traffic, there's grocery stores, like some things that people don't even realize exist in Africa. And there's definitely still a rural population. Actually, 85% of the population of Malawi lives in villages, and so that's very much a reality, but that's not the only reality.
The better population of the country lives below the poverty line. When I travel to countries like the US, I always remind people to come to Malawi or come to the sub-Saharan Africa. I don't know when, but I just hope that one day Malawi will be a better country in terms of the levels of poverty. Malawian people are very friendly people. Malawi is called the warm heart of Africa because of the warmness of people. People who do not complain even when they are going through a lot of problems.
Forever, let grace and peace be with you.
I started explaining, I feel like Jesus has specifically called Win the Saints to build a safe home in this country of Malawi that would do counseling and vocational training for teenage girls who are sexually abused. And I said, is that something that is needed in this country? And I remember so clearly she leans forward and her jaw like almost hits the table, and she says, for the last 14 years of my life, I've been trying to build a home exactly like that.
I had been looking around to say, how can Malawi respond to issues of sexual violence?
And we have completely failed in being able to find the resources that we need to run a home like that. She's like, I'll do whatever I can to help you build this home.
In 2001, when I came to the US, I visited a shelter that had all the facilities that you need. And that inspired me so much. But I saw it not happening in Malawi. If this facility is properly resourced, it will be the first of this kind in Malawi, and hoping that it can save many people across the country.
So we asked Emma, is there a good location that you might know of as to where this home would best be located in the country of Malawi? And she was like, we just happened to do a countrywide survey on sexual abuse in the year before we came, and we have actually already selected a city that we knew we were going to want to start working toward building a home there. We've even already started developing relationships.
Tomorrow, I'll bring car. We have to go to this place where we are going to meet a chief.
Emma set up a meeting with the senior chief of Mponela, and we got to have lunch together. I remember I commented on how much I liked his shirt, and it was like this serious, formal moment. Emma's presenting me, would you like to say something? You know what, I just really, really like your shirt. And he cracked up for like 5 minutes. So Mponela, the area, can be known for being a place where a lot of men are doing bad things, to girls. Yeah. Does he think that this home will help change that?
And
he's like, I'll do whatever I can to help you build this home and change this reputation across Malawi. We were just trying to figure out why this random small city that's only 16,000 people in the middle of Malawi has the highest ratings of gender-based violence.
The central part of Malawi is a hub of growing tobacco.
And 70% of the income that comes into Malawi is through the sale of tobacco. And the central region is the most fertile place. And so the vast majority of farmers are in this central region. And on top of that, Mponela is right in between the two main auction floors of the whole country of Malawi. Back here is where they actually process the tobacco. And then behind us over here is the actual auction floors where buyers will come in.
We've been growing tobacco for a very long time, but it has not really changed the status of people. Many people in the same districts where they grow a lot of tobacco still remain very poor. We are just growing for other people to make a fortune out of it. And the girls are the most vulnerable because they have to fend for the families to help out.
The girl child in Malawi is still, especially in the rural areas, is still treated as a second citizen, and importance is still placed on the boy child. So they're usually victims of forced early marriages, which they don't want to get into in the first place, and also victims of sexual abuse.
Thousands upon thousands of farmers come, they stay in Ponela, and then they go, they sell their tobacco, they have a bunch of money, they're away from their families, and that's how this small trading center has gotten this reputation of being the place that grown men go to sleep with teenage girls. There was a survey that was done across Malawi where they interviewed thousands of girls and women, and they would ask them two questions. They said, at what age did you have your first sexual encounter? And the average age was 12 years old. And then they followed that question up and said, of that first sexual encounter, were you a willing participant? And they said over 70% of the girls said they weren't willing participants in their first sexual encounter at the average age of 12 years old.
We have what we call the victim support units within the police stations. But these are not meant to respond to sexual violence in terms of shelter for sexually abused women. It is just the general facility for general gender-based violence. But also the facility is more of a transit. So you can only stay there for one day in case you do not have shelter.
At the victim support unit, they can also help you in counseling, but they are usually overwhelmed. They don't have enough staff to do it, and most of the police are men, and they're not trained in trauma counseling.
Is that possible? If you guys get a case of an 11-year-old girl that has been raped and is in a deep need to be taken from their home, would you refer them to Emma and say, we have a girl that really needs to live in this home?
The challenge was that people should come to be assisted. But by the end of the day, they will be sent back to the very home whereby they were abused. It's wow. They will come here for assistance, they will be assisted fully because they are not going back, they are going to somewhere where they will be safe.
Girls who have been raped or sexually abused at nighttime who come here, they are able to stay here for the night and then get help in the morning.
Yeah.
That is the extent of what Malawi has in place as far as support that they can offer long-term to girls who have been sexually abused. Like that's it. It's just like sleeping one night after they've been raped and then maybe eating a meal. And so there's no long-term facility anywhere in Malawi. We're told over and over again to have this would revolutionize the way that they could care for girls who have been sexually abused. We are thinking about developing relationships with the men who are doing the sexual abuse to tell them about Jesus and help to see their heart be changed so they stop doing the abuse. We could pull every girl out of the brothels, but there will still be the same number of men wanting to sleep with the same number of girls. Yeah. And so if we only pull the girls out, they may just go into villages and bring more into prostitution. And so because of us being so good at our jobs of bringing the girls out, we may be trafficking more girls. And so the only solution that will eradicate sexual abuse in the world is found in the hearts of men being transformed. Yeah. This is where we'll do discipleship with men. Newman and I. It's called Zamalaulo. Zamalaulo. Yeah. So we're going to come on Monday, rent a room, and have a class with about 10 men. We just met with the manager, and he's up for the idea. So here's Devil Street with all the bars where the prostitution happens in Ponela, and then right at the end, there's this gate behind us of the hotel that we're going to do a partnership. So that's pretty much it right there. And if the heart of man is changed, which I believe only the gospel can do, then sexual exploitation would actually be eradicated because the demand wouldn't be there anymore.
The justice should be done to both the victim and the perpetrator.
The first group of men who we're discipling and mentoring. Right here, we got, I know this is Arthur, right? I forget all the names. Hamilton, there's Newman, and Thompson, Wiseman.
Timothy Clint.
Awesome, Timothy. So yeah, we just finished our first class. 4 guys received Jesus. You 3 and you received Jesus. I just wanted to remember this moment forever as we continue doing ministry and thank these guys and thank Jesus for being faithful and showing up. Amen. Woo! Do you think like this class, like if we did it more, is it something that's needed here in Pornella or even, here in these bar areas? You think it's something that's really important?
This is very important. I think it's in a small town, of course, but there are many things that are being done here. They do much sex. Mainly, more girls are being abused.
You've been doing sex up until now.
Yes, it's like that. So today I think it's a good day. Jesus has been God in my life.
My estimate is about 20,000 farmers, who is staying here during the market time. If you go around during dawn hours, you will see people moving with girls everywhere in Pornella. It's more than 20 hotels here. Hotels are filled with those farmers.
There has been this understanding that when you sell your tobacco, you've been working the whole year. Why don't you go out, do party for the money that you've suffered for a long time? Some people can spend a week without going to their villages. They are staying there until they finish their money, then they'll go back with nothing.
I can't comprehend just what that would be like for a woman and her family, her children, to have this man come back who has just been sexually abusing children, just to have him be demanding them to serve him then.
They pay money, but most time they're not their age. Yeah, they are small, like a man having 30 years sleeping with a girl with 15 years. It's abuse. If a girl says, I don't want that, no, I'll give you money. Maybe they even rape her. 10 years, even 5 years. Some girls have been left with those babies. I don't know what word can we put if a 5-year-old girl, that girl is a baby. It's my sincere hope that things will be changed here in terms of prostitution and other bad behavior which is here in Pornella. 2-3 years coming, we are going to have a better Malawi. Thank you for coming.
The next step is trying to show this vision in a way that people would want to actually invest in it. And so we instantly start planning toward doing a dinner banquet, just inviting everyone that we know possible to try to come to this event. I spoke for 40 minutes and just explained everything that had happened. I believe that Jesus had led me to announce the goal for the night, that we would try to raise $30,000, which seemed completely astronomical and crazy. I got up at the beginning of the event and said, we're gonna count up the money and announce it. I really wanted to give the people an opportunity to feel like they were a part of this thing that was bigger than themselves. And by the end of the night, we counted up the donations. The total of tonight's fundraising event is $28,386. People went nuts, and I was probably more shocked than all of them. That night really just defined the shift that had started to take place in my heart. This is going to become a reality. I had a number of really close friends of mine that were just asking tons of questions like, you have struggled with this validation from girls being the greatest idol of your heart and you finding your identity in that. And now Jesus is gonna just set you free so that you can then do ministry. I had no idea how Jesus would go about healing my heart or setting me free from this exploitation of girls to then be able to bring healing to girls. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. It just took me to this place where I said, Jesus, if this is something that you've really created me for, then this is something that you're gonna have to do in my heart. And I want freedom from this, but I don't know how to get it. Another part of this struggle was this underlying secret addiction to pornography that I had for years and years. Jesus, I've been a part of all of these accountability groups, and I've tried in my own strength to do everything that I could to find freedom from this addiction to pornography. And I've gone months and months without looking at it, and then all of a sudden I'll just fail. And I said, Jesus, I know that I've done everything that I can to try to free myself over the last 4 years from this. We're just gonna have to try to make do with the best that we can. I'm gonna still love you and still serve you and try to do this ministry, but it's gonna have to be accompanied with this underlying subtle addiction to pornography that I have. I just remember as I'm having this conversation with Jesus, I felt this weird physical thing on my heart break off. At the moment where I'd accepted defeat, I just felt like Jesus was there with me, and he was saying, you finally get it, you finally understand that you can't do this without me. And this is exactly where I want you to be. This is exactly where I've been waiting for you to get to, so that you can finally see that it's only me that can set you free from this. Ever since then, I believe I was just completely and supernaturally liberated from that addiction. And I'm not flawless. I don't never lust ever, but I've been able to know that that is no longer an option for me to feed that and give into that. I think it's common for a lot of people to think what's the big deal? I just believe that there is massive problem where you are exploiting another human being and you're looking at them like an object to be able to just get pleasure for yourself. And again, this definition of love is a self-sacrifice for someone else's benefit. I came to the conclusion that the opposite was true. I was actually sacrificing someone else's dignity as they're showing them their bodies, and I'm using it as an object to get pleasure for the sake of me being able to benefit from that. And so I thought, if that's the opposite of the definition of love, it has to be a definition of hate. So I'm stoked, and I'm getting these opportunities to speak in churches and sharing the story, and more money is trickling in, and we're planning some other fundraisers like a trivia night and a swing dancing night. We did another dinner banquet the next year and raised.
You guys ready? Drum roll. $50,291.
In a year and a half, pretty much raised the money that we needed to build this home.
The chief actually thought when there was some silence, maybe these people will not come back. But I kept on assuring him that no, I'm sure something is going to happen.
I actually called her after the dinner banquet. I remember specifically saying, Emma, this dream that you've had for 14 years and you've been praying about, and this dream that Jesus has also shared with me, it's becoming a reality and it's going to happen.
And then David came back, and then everything started.
And I was there for 2.5 months and just met with dozens and dozens of people. So we're told this location to show up at. We have no idea what to expect. I didn't even know that there were gonna be a ton of chiefs there. And so we get there, there's this crowd, 62 of the most influential people we find out in the whole community of Mponela. And all of a sudden, a chief points, and one dude takes off running. And then he points over in this other direction, and another dude takes off running. And I get up next to him, and we're kind of talking. I'm not sure what they're running for exactly. And he's explaining, okay, we've decided as the council of these chiefs that we're gonna gift Win the Saints this huge plot of land, and these men are running to the boundaries. And I'm looking off in the distance, I'm like, that guy over there?
Look, your brothers here. Look, people come to see you.
I find out later that it's 9 football fields worth of land that was just given to Win the Saints in a moment because a group of chiefs saw the value in this home being built in their community.
If we were going to buy that land, it was going to be so much expensive for us.
I mean, probably $20,000 or $30,000 worth of land that Jesus, through one relationship, was able to do all of that work instantly. I so love that he put so much of a precedent on like loving people and being in a relationship with them, and how much work is no longer necessary because of just love for someone. And I love the way that Jesus works that way.
He's proud enough to see that that project is the first of its kind will start in his area.
So all of these chiefs and the senior chief and all of these like headmen of these communities are saying, we see value in this and we desire to be a part of this. One of the craziest and most exciting moments of my entire life. And then all of a sudden we go back home and we're seeing people catch this vision and beginning to really invest and sacrifice in it becoming a reality. And I really just had this desire to bring a couple people over to Malawi and let them see what Jesus was doing and let them see how hugely this is on his heart. And so we decided to take some teams over.
I've always had a desire to go to Africa, you know, seen the cheetahs on Discovery Channel and all this, but like once you get there, it's just a really different experience.
Being a person who's never been out of the country, it was pretty culture shocking. Usually you would think that because I am African American that I would kind of blend in, but I didn't. And I was actually the one that got stared at the most.
You know, I could hop on a plane tomorrow and land in Chipi's village and be welcomed in and probably build me a home and give me a wife. I didn't already have one. See God ordaining meetings with NGOs and pastors, connections that were made, and the people that we got to meet.
Men don't abuse women. Men use your strength to prevent violence.
God's moving, you know, in this little city of Mpunela in Africa. Like God cares about those people as much as he cares about me and the person down the street and the people in every other country.
There was a point in time where we went to a village in Malawi. They actually put on this dance for us while we were there, and they invited us to come dance. So we dropped it like it's hot. I see where we get a lot of our rump shaking from. Can I say that?
I was so excited to go to Malawi that I ended up not sleeping the entire flight there. I absolutely love Malawi. The people are unbelievably warm and friendly. We were hitchhiking and we all got to just lay down on the bed of the truck, and we were actually laying next to big packages of fish. Sean and David also prayed over a child who had a pink eye. His eye was totally red, and when they were done praying and they opened their eyes, the baby's eyes was super white and was completely healed.
One of my favorite parts about leading teams is the way that we come over with the savior complex and we end up being humbled and seeing that we actually need the culture, we need the people of Malawi, and we need that experience more than anything that we could have offered them.
We were across the street, and it's very obvious that they're prostituting themselves because they're dressed differently than the other African women because they have, usually really short skirts on. So cars would drive by, and the way they would come, you could see just the lights flash at them a little bit, and so you could kind of see their faces or see their bodies when cars would drive by. And just every time a car would drive by, I just felt my stomach clench up. I just thought, oh, don't get in that car. Don't get in that car. We actually went over to talk to them and to pray with them and to tell them about Jesus and advance the gospel.
And I would do it again. People ask me all the time, will I ever go back to Africa? Yeah, I will.
On our most recent trip to Malawi, we had a team come over. It was the 4th team that we had, and there was an unexpected person that joined us on that trip.
After a year, we started just seeing each other a little bit here and there, and I was praying like, God, is this from you? Are we able to talk again? And God was like, you have to call him. It would not leave my mind.
Both of us never anticipating to ever talk to one another again. I was visiting school that we had both gone to, and she woke up and felt like Jesus said, you're going to see David today, and it's going to be okay to talk with him. So we ended up seeing each other in the library, and we talked for about 10 minutes.
And he had just changed our hearts and worked in us both so much that now that we're friends again, it's so healthy, and there are just natural boundaries.
Another friend of mine had read this verse over me that said, I bring beauty out of ashes. This is that situation that he's talking about. This relationship that was lit on fire and in ashes on the ground, all of a sudden is being redeemed.
I think he has stopped pushing in places where he used to push before and pry and want to know the deep things. And God has also worked in my heart to teach me that it's okay to not reveal all of the deep things of myself to a man who's not my husband. It's okay to keep something sacred, and that does not make me a closed off person.
I just believe that every human being, to some capacity or another, finds their identity in the opposite sex. And so my challenge would be that you take this message and you ask Jesus to open up your eyes to the severity of the lust that is inside of your heart. And you cry out to him and ask him to help you find liberation from it. Because that, I believe, will end sexual exploitation in the world. And it will end human trafficking. And it begins right here in each of us.
David was the first person who opened my eyes to the issue of human trafficking. He challenged me to ask God what it is that breaks my heart and what it is that makes me come alive. I remember specifically when I was 9 years old, one of my friends on the playground telling me that she had been molested. And I grabbed her hand. We're going to the principal because I asked her if she had told anybody and she hadn't. So we walked up to the recreation supervisor and I was like, I need to go to the principal with her. I can't tell you why. And so he let us go in, went and sat in the principal's office, refused to leave and stayed with her, as well as that's the year I got my first mannequin head. Even in my own life came together as what breaks my heart and what I'm passionate about has been connected for my whole life, just wanting to do hair and make women feel beautiful inward and outward. I had pretty much sworn off working with Win the Saints. You want to help abused women feel beautiful. Ding, 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 Win the Saints would be perfect, but I was like, no, I can't work with David. Sent him a text. God keeps laying Win the Saints on my heart. I just want you to know, I'm praying for it. For the organization, I'm praying for you, and maybe someday in the future I could come and work and do counseling with the girls. He sends me a text, haha, why wait? The timing of your text message was totally crazy because he had talked to Hannah that same day, and God had revealed to him that God sends people out 2 by 2. Again, God had to work through me because had David come to me, I still would have been like, no, but God had to show me that it was what I was supposed to do. That is how I actually ended up even coming.
My name is Hannah Vaughn, and I've been raised in St. Louis, Missouri my whole life. I'm 23 years old. I fell in love with Jesus for real when I was 18 years old, and that has defined everything since then.
When did you first start working as a prostitute?
Maybe now it's 10 years.
Jesus, I pray that make you the focus of the conversation.
Okay, I started this just because I think it was the time when my father passed away. So that's when I started, doing the prostitution. In her family, I think there were you said 5 children? 6. So she's being the old and she had to take the responsibility.
You began doing prostitution because it was expected for you to help?
Yeah, to pay them school fees, to buy them food, to buy them clothes.
So you are doing the work of a hero right now, just in telling your story. And it's very brave, and I'm very, very thankful.
I pray that you would just protect their hearts and minds from a feeling of even being exploited through this experience.
This is not good job. I'm just doing this because of poverty. That's why when I get money, I start a small business to take care of myself. Other people can take you from here to go to the room and maybe to block the condom and maybe to rape you, maybe to beat you.
How young are the youngest girls that she's met that are doing prostitution?
When I was like 13, 15.
Within the culture, there are a lot of secrets.
Can you also ask her about the kind of men that come here?
I am aware. Ask them,
Okay, she's talked a lot of different kinds of people, like the white people, Indians, the priests, pastors.
My passion with anti-trafficking stuff is not just for the girls directly, but for the church and for things like pornography and exploitation being eradicated out of our own hearts. I firmly believe that Jesus has a destiny for the church, and it's being hindered by our yoke to sexual immorality. Pastors and priests come a lot?
Yeah, come a lot here to big girls to went together to their home and sleep there up tomorrow morning.
I'm very sorry pastors and priests have come here, because that is not the heart of Jesus for you. Jesus thinks you are worth way more than that.
I love it because it's not something myself.
Why are you laughing?
The expectation so that maybe these people were supposed to bring different stuff to them, but instead, priests, the pastors are coming to take them, to use them, to misuse them.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's so hard because pastors and priests should be coming to you with a message of true love of what Jesus has done for you.
Yeah.
And they should not be coming to use you, because they're supposed to represent Jesus, and Jesus does not want to use you. He cares about who you are.
We're the ones who are supposed to minister healing to these girls. But then if it's us who are doing damage to them, the question is, what is their hope? Not only do these clergy people go there to get the girls, but if these girls came into our churches on a Sunday, how do we receive them?
The church is a place for the broken. It's not for perfect people. So if someone has been abused, they should be able to work in a church and know that they're going to get help and the support that they need, which is not usually the case.
I sit there all the time and I'm like, Jesus, how is this possible that you have made a bride for yourself on the earth that is supposed to be carrying out your heart, and yet these atrocities are still happening? Why the body of Christ isn't literally taking girls in off the street left and right. If we were doing and being all that we were called to be, we're called to be salt and we're called to be light. Like salt heals things and cleanses things, and light exposes things in darkness. Have you gone to church much in your life?
I used to go to church, but I stopped some time back.
Why did she stop?
She was actually discouraged by a friend or so who is involved in prostitution. And she asked her, why do you go to church? Yeah, then she said, it's good to go to church. But he said, no, according to the what we do, we're not supposed to go to church. So that's why she stopped also. Yeah.
Jesus, when he was on this earth, Jesus actually hung out with and was friends with girls who were prostituting. And so your friend was wrong. Jesus does not love anybody more or anybody less. He loves us all the same. And he has good plans for you. I'm serious. God is serious about you.
She said, as I'm listening, I'm so serious. She loved what you're saying.
I feel we need to receive them, minister healing to them, give them hope, and bring them to a level where they feel comfortable to be with the church.
For them to open up and to seek for more help, it depends on how you react to them the first time they tell you what they went through.
In Revelation, it says, to the one who overcomes sexual immorality, I will give him a rod to rule the nations. And especially if we're trying to end something like trafficking in the world, like there's just no way we're gonna be able to do that if things like pornography, masturbation, and lust in our own heart is going crazy in the church, and it is. And in my own life, I struggled with masturbation for years. And it came to a place where I literally thought that I would just take it with me to the grave. I was crying out to God for holiness, and I was like, God, I just want to be holy. I just want to be free. I just want to be over this. And I just remember him saying, learn what it means to be my beloved. It's my cry for freedom from this struggle that I had had for years. He answered it with love, and he told me that I was called to do nothing but love him. And as I did that, there wasn't room anymore to love sin. And I remember the first time I felt tempted, I started laughing so hard. I drank champagne and it's awesome, and you're trying to offer me dirty lake water? That was the comparison in my heart of what happened. Like the way that you overcome sin in your life is by it being replaced by a higher, more true love. And so the fact that Jesus showed up and poured his love on me and said, your one call in life is to love me back, set me completely free from that sin, and also freed me to serve and step into my destiny as a child of God and as an instrument of salt and light in the world.
I pray, God, that you would open her eyes to her value as a woman. I pray that she would sense your love and that she would know that she is not rejected by you, and that, God, you desire more for her than poverty, and you desire more for her than a life of being used, God. And I thank you that she is so strong, and I thank you that she is so brave, and I thank you that she is so beautiful, and I thank you that you care so much about her.
The first girl taking her first step into the door of the safe home, I could only imagine her having some kind of feelings like, what did I do to deserve this? How did I get here? And just this anticipation of, how is this gonna change my life? Am I really going to get healing from the abuse that I've gone through? Like, is that possible? I know my life won't go back to the same as it was before, but what will my life look like? Is there still an ability for me to hope in a somewhat normal future? And that's our greatest hope, ultimately, is creating this environment where they can discover their worth in him and find healing from the way that worth has been abused and taken advantage of. We love just to do creative things like dancing and music and kind of artistic expressions, and also giving them the dignity of education.
And I would love to see some skills imparted in these girls, because after 1 year of rehabilitation, what are they going to do when they go back? If someone was raped while they were a prostitute, if they come to their home, once they get out, do they go back to their trade? Or do you give them skills to do something else that is a good thing to society?
Not giving them a skill that will allow them to just kind of barely make it. Like, let's teach you how to sew so you can start a business sewing, which is cool, and we're totally gonna teach them how to sew, but it's gonna be a life skill, not a way of living that will just perpetuate their poverty.
We are looking at girls with potential. They are the potential government workers, potential homemakers. We are looking at mothers in generations to come, doctors and teachers, lawyers. You're looking at potential that has not been tapped. Malawi will appreciate who these girls are and receive them back in the community. Look at them as like any other sick person that has been healed, that has gone through the rehab process, and then help them to settle in the community.
One of the crazier parts of what we're doing, which we've been told is impossible, is actually a foster care type of system where we find families in the local church of Malawi. And we just believe that if Jesus does any kind of redemption in this world, it's going to be through his body, the church. And so our hope is to have these girls find a family that they can grow up in, so they're not just staying in this context of what an orphanage is like. We've just been told culturally it's going to be really, really difficult to find families that would be willing to take, one, a stranger that's not a part of their family into their home, and two, a girl who's been sexually abused and in prostitution possibly. But we just believe that what's impossible with man is possible with God, because Jesus said that.
It happened with me. I'm a Malawian. I was a Malawian girl. I'm still a Malawian. And they can do it as I did it.
And it's just 3 minutes down this road.
Many times people have asked me, like, how did you get here? Like, what in the world? And there was no other reason than just very clearly, you know, God's leading and him supernaturally paving the way.
There was a time whenever I didn't really believe in miracles like that. The thing is, miracles happen every day, but people are just so used to calling them coincidences. God has crazily ordained meetings and interactions with people, literally at like gas stations, churches that we're visiting. We have had to do almost zero work to find counselors or contacts or people who want to be involved. God has brought them to us.
This enters into the cafeteria where all the girls will be eating.
We all need to hold hands to make things happen and to see a big difference. It doesn't work to work independently. Ubuntu is basically, I am because we are, depending on each other in everything you do. You are what you are because of the people around you.
And back here, so this is one of the rooms that the girls will be staying in. And then there's 2 more rooms back here that will actually be the living quarters for the girls.
We don't need one. We need more of those homes across Malawi.
Even if I'm changing one person per year, I don't mind. I'll move on and on.
And most chiefs usually come here, and when they meet Emma, they are always happy, they dance. Just because they are happy with what is happening. And we are very proud of Emma, what he has done. That one is a woman. We did not expect it to do what he has done. No.
People will say, those ones that were there made history, and we saw the first girl entering this place.
This is the director's office.
Your office?
I mean, I'm not the director. No, it'll be whoever's in charge. These are the wonderful workers. Zikuyenda. And what's wonderful is once the building is built, it will be run by Africans. Even though some funding is coming from America now, it is just the initial funding. Once the project is built, our desire is for the project to be in the hands of Africans, so that they will have ownership, Africans will be in charge, and our dream was just to empower and give the resources so that Africans can do ministry, because they know how to help other Africans better than we know how to help Africans, because they know the culture well and they know the language. They are not employees of America, but they are just serving Jesus.
Panali sangalo. Siku lomwe madabwera kunoko. Panali magrupu okwane 7. Amene adzandira project imeneyo. Pana magrupu onsewo ni wasangalala ndithu.
I think for anyone to feel a part of something, they have to feel some kind of ownership. All other methods of development have failed. Participatory development is the best, where you make someone feel responsible for something. And let's say they had a broken toilet. They'll say, okay, we'll wait for them to come fix it. But since they know that it's their thing, if it fails, they have failed. They will be more responsible.
And this project is different from other residentials because it will help the community. Sexual abuse and the like will reduce. So it will be more beneficial. It has started to benefit us, it will continue benefiting us when it starts being used. Even the chiefs here are very proud.
Wow.
Because it will cover a lot of kilometers from here, helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sure. So we are proud of that, and we pray for those people who suggested that this structure should be here. We are very happy with that.
Amen.
Sure.
It is just Jesus who has suggested it.
Yes, Jesus.
And don't put limitations and restrictions on what you think you're either capable of or not capable of, because it's not about you. It's about what he's capable of through you.
That I hope and pray that people who are outside of When the Saints look at When the Saints and they don't just see a successful rehabilitation program, but they actually see the glory of Jesus exalted, that it convinces them of the reality of who God is.